what Charles was saying, I really understand, and I think a lot of people are going to have a hard time with it. I mean, just in terms of just straight gender normative society, they're like, well, if you transition, you should just be doing that. You should just be fitting that one, normal role. Of course, everybody knows that that's what's expected, and that's what's inhibiting to an awful lot of people, and kind of negates the whole point of transition in the first place. The ability to find yourself, and then people just think, well, you have to be this role, which is not even really somebody else, but just this sort of generic non-person, you know. Um, I think what Charles says makes a lot of sense because, well, since Charles does identify as trans masculine, as Sam said, but sort of in between. I know Charles has done videos about just being trans, not trans male, but just trans, and being sort of more gender neutral than what is expected by psychiatrists or society, straight society. Um, and also because Charles has said in another video, he refers to his genitalia as his cunt. Not, not a dick or whatever, but cunt. And so obviously, from those two things, those past videos, Charles is saying, has some feminine identity and not just masculine identity. And that's important for this point, which I was going to make, was that if that's true for someone like with Charles, you wouldn't just want to give up diet community. You wouldn't just want to give up female community, women's community, feminist community. I mean, as somebody who's generally cisgendered male, I'll introduce myself in a minute towards the end, but as somebody who's generally, been raised male and generally, has been around males and, obviously seen, as other people have in nonfiction and fiction, the depiction of sort of aggressive, type A, male culture, anti-feminist or culture. I mean, there is that. There is that part of male society that's hostile to women, and as we all know, there's also, a majority of men just, people of any demographic group just stick together and don't really care about other demographic groups so much. To some degree, every demographic group does it. But when one demographic group is in charge of, 99% of government, military, police force, academia, all around the world, then it matters. It matters greatly. And so it's not just that I think all men are hostile towards women. Well, they're not necessarily, but they're going to ignore, negate, be oblivious to, be unaware of issues related to people born women, females, people feminine identified, even, feminine males, feminine gay males, gender neutral people, intersex people, the whole spectrum are going to be left out of the clique, the group that sort of goes around deciding things and is, the upper management lunch group, the golf buddies, the government, whatever the body may be that sort of controls things, plainly or sort of by default, by law or by default. So yeah, I think it's definitely important for, I think, even trans men who identify as very masculine to keep in touch with groups and social support networks that are the only ones that are really going to, listen to them or listen to them a lot more than just the dominant male structure. As I said, even if it's not a hostile structure, it's going to be oblivious to other people's needs and oblivious to its own privilege. With my own identity, I'm going to get to myself now because I haven't made a video for Genderqueer Chat. It's funny, I've just realized my hypocrisy lately because I was telling Sam to embrace, an identity term, but I realize with myself how complex it is. I've been going to genderqueer meetings for 6 months or more now, and at the beginning, we're told to ask to state our pronoun of choice, and I would just say, well, whatever. But then everybody would just say whatever, and after a couple months, I just felt like it was kind of, it was kind of getting comical. So the last couple of meetings, I just said, well, just male, just because, well, that's just what I always use in my life, but at the same time, I'm not always comfortable with it. As I told people in the first couple of meetings I went to, how I feel genderqueer is like, I feel like 10, maybe 15, maybe sometimes 20% female, but as Kate Bornstein would say in her books, or I guess her books, I'm not sure if she uses gender-neutral pronouns yet, and yet I have read her books. It's been a long time since I read them, sorry. I don't like filling in male on forms. I mean, part of my gender queerness is that I'm against society constantly putting the male and female boxes on every form and everything that has nothing to do with what's in your pants or, what your gender identity is. All these forms keep asking you to do it, and that's one of the ways I started to protest, is just not filling in those boxes. I didn't fill it in on my census. It'll be interesting to see what they do about that. But yeah, I mean, and for a long time, for all my life, I started daydreaming about what it would be like to be a woman or being a woman, and not just like for vicarious like sexual reasons, but just for like identity, and thought about the things that would be easier and more pleasant, and the things that would be more complex and hard, like gender roles, or just getting equal salary and things, all those things that we all know. But while I don't seek transition now, like when people would ask me in recent months, are you going to transition? My answer would be, I don't think so. Not yes, not no, but I just think the costs and the state of the art of the technology and the procedures would just be too difficult for me. But if I could just step into a machine and just change bodies, change gender, change hair color, eye color, skin color, species, if I could be alien, or what I mean, if I could just be, anything I wanted, if I could just step into that machine and step out every day. I mean, I'd be a different person every day. I'd be a different sex every day. I'd be a different gender presentation every day. I'd be women, men, drag queens. It'd be interesting to be an intersex person. I mean, it'd be interesting to be, like I said, just all kinds of things. Be one of the wild things from the Sendak story, I mean, who wouldn't, I mean, there's a reason the phrase variety is the spice of life came into being, is because it's true. I guess that's a very jumbled way of summarizing the way I look at things, or at least a fraction of it. I have a feeling this video is probably 10 or 12 or 15 minutes long by now, so I'm going to cut it off. I just will say lastly that I'm glad to fill in for you, Peter. Hi. Bye, everyone.